Say the line!
Booyah.
Come one, come all, hop on the Snyder hate train. How are we gonna bring him down? By reciting the same old shit we've been saying for years.
He doesn't understand these characters.
So if you haven't heard, a fan asked Zack Snyder if Cyborg says Booyah in his movie, and Snyder replied with a hell no. So how does the internet react? They use this as a chance to again push the same tired narrative that Zack Snyder doesn't understand these characters, and Zack Snyder doesn't like these characters. This is one of the most popular threads I saw talking about it. It really sums up a lot of the shit that people are saying. So first this guy says, but why? It's literally his catchphrase. And this guy replies with, I cannot express how much I hate comic book movies that act as if they're embarrassed by their source material. Every time I watch Snyder's DC movies, it feels like he's trying so hard to prove to me that this movie isn't stupid. It's embarrassing. There are hundreds of filmmakers that would kill to be able to direct a Justice League movie, and Warner Brother gives it to a guy that is so hell-bent on proving that superhero movies are dark and cool, that he willingly removes any sort of personality from his characters to seem edgy. If you think that Cyborg saying booyah, or Superman actually smiling and saving people, or Batman not committing murder are stupid, make another fucking movie. I know there's someone out there that actually gives a damn about these characters. Actually, yeah, there is someone who gives a damn about these characters. His movie comes out next month. Now keep in mind, all of this is over the fact that Cyborg doesn't say booyah. That's just a catchphrase. His personality is much more than that. But yet people are reacting as if this is ruining the character. Guys, come on, seriously. But more importantly, Cyborg saying booyah wasn't a thing until the Teen Titans show.
Booyah! 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 Booyah!
It was only after that it became synonymous with the character, later on being used in the comics. Now, I do understand why some fans would be disappointed that Cyborg didn't say booyah, because the version that many others, including myself, grew up on was the Teen Titans version. But come on, it ruins the characters? It's literally just one word. But what's more important is that the Cyborg from Teen Titans and Cyborg from Justice League are two different versions of the character. Ray Fisher himself actually addressed this a few years ago when a fan asked him a similar question.
I could.
Oh.
Wait. I could. It's possible to do. But how about we shout something else instead? Just for right now. You may get a little bit of that later on in the future. You never know. And what I want to make sure that we do is, by the same token, make sure we separate the Cyborg from the film, also from the Cyborg from the Teen Titans, because they are two different iterations of the character. I was a huge fan of that Cyborg growing up as a kid, because that was when the original cartoon show was on. And you know, Kari Payton is like a master at what he does. But how about I give you and not a shout of Booyah, but how about I give you a little bit more of a subtle one? Yeah. Boo-yah. Woo!
So yeah, Booyah was made up by the voice actor for the Teen Titans show, and Cyborg himself was changed in that show to appeal to a new generation of audiences. Now, in light of the internet freaking out over this catchphrase, Ray Fisher himself addressed this with a tweet, and he made some pretty good points. Serious reflection question for folks that take issue with Cyborg not saying Booyah in Zack Snyder's Justice League. Are you just as upset that none of the other characters are using their catchphrases, i.e. great hero, this looks like a job for, etc.? If not, why is that? Very good point. I haven't seen anyone else complain about that, in both Marvel and DC. This is literally the first time I'm hearing people complain about a catchphrase not being used. Now this guy right here tries to make a point, but I think it falls flat in his face once you start examining it. He says, this is the difference between DC and MCU movies. Marvel usually hits the sweet spot of embracing their source material and adapting to the live action movie format and movie technology. DC movies are deathly afraid of admitting they are based on comic books, which is why DC's anime movies are generally very good to excellent, and DC's live action movies are generally poor. DC's animated films are unafraid to embrace their source material. I think it's interesting because the MCU films change a lot about their characters, from their appearances down to their personalities. It's usually so different from the source material that the comics that come after the movies usually change the character in the comics to be like the versions in the MCU, like Tony Stark, Star-Lord, Loki. So why is it Marvel can get away with changing so many things from its source material, and there's not a major uproar from fans screaming that these filmmakers ruined or don't understand the characters? At least not to the extent that Snyder gets. I can only think of a few times where fans actually got really upset about how characters were changed in the MCU. The biggest one being the Mandarin in Iron Man 3. It's how they basically turned the character into a joke, and that rubbed a lot of fans the wrong way. But other changes that I've mentioned before have been largely ignored, like Ultron being created by Tony Stark instead of Ant-Man, and his personality changed to be just like Tony's. Thanos' whole motivation being changed. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver's origin being changed from mutants to just science experiments. Or how about WandaVision? Does that show completely capture Vision and Scarlet Witch and doesn't change them in any way to fit the story they want to tell? Or how about how most of the heroes are now written similar to how Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark is? Most of them are just quip and joke machines, and in some cases they all just feel the same. Not to mention how different the the characters look from their comic book counterparts. But what I really want to look at right now is Thor Ragnarok, not the movie itself, even though it did take the big important event of Ragnarok and turn into a sci-fi buddy space comedy, tossing the seriousness of the event out the window. No, let's look at the director, Taika Waititi. In an interview, he admitted to not know much about Thor and barely doing any research for his movie, which would explain why the movie came out the way it did. This is him openly admitting that he doesn't know much about the characters or the lore, and he barely looked into any of that. And yet, he's in charge of making the Thor movies. He did Ragnarok and he's doing Love and Thunder. Where's the giant uproar in articles and comments calling him out? Where's the people saying he doesn't understand the characters and is ruining them? You have a much better case at proving that he doesn't understand his characters than you do saying that Snyder doesn't understand his. Now, all this whining about a catchphrase is literally just people looking for a reason to bitch at Snyder because they just don't like him. They take a small detail like this Booyah catchphrase and use it to push this narrative against Snyder because they don't like him or his movies. It's actually kind of amazing, the lengths that some people go. Like I said earlier, this isn't the same version as Cyborg. It's based more on the Justice League version of the character, but more importantly, it's just a catchphrase that doesn't define the character. We really shouldn't be wasting this much time talking about something this small considering that bigger changes have happened to other comic book characters and no one really seemed to care. But yep, here we are. You know what, let's just riff off a couple more to bitch about. Who is this bitch? I want the real Mary Jane back. Why is Aunt May so hot? If we're gonna bitch this much about a catchphrase, I want to bitch about this stuff. That's all I really gotta say, so I'm gonna end this video by saying, this shit's kinda dumb.
What's Gibby thinking about?
I like getting plowed in my ass while I play Overwatch.